Hi, everybody. We are back. This is Pamela D Wilson, caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker. We're back for another webinar on how to advocate for elderly parents. But this time, we're talking about social aspects, physical aspects, and cognitive, which are brain activities. Stay with me for this webinar. As always, we are going to begin with housekeeping. I use the term elderly parent or elderly parents for the person for whom you are providing care. If you haven't printed out the materials for this module, now is the time to do it so that you can follow along and fill in the blanks. Let's talk about the objectives of advocacy, physical, social, and cognitive activities for your elderly parents. At the end of this part, you should be able to identify the relationship between physical, social, and cognitive activities and find ways to support participation for your elderly parents in a variety of these activities. Why do we do this? With age, our worlds, the worlds of our elderly parents become smaller. As we age, you may notice this already, but we begin to lose friends and family members to illness, or they might move away. Making friends is more difficult for elderly parents because they are out of the workplace. They're not usually in situations where groups congregate unless they go to church regularly, or unless they have been very active and remain very social and active in their life and in their retirement. The same applies to us as children caregivers. When we lack the context of a group, making new friends can become challenging. We might have friends that we had from high school or college from years ago. We might have a couple of friends in the workplace, but beyond that, if we don't have a group like this class or another opportunity, meeting new people and making new friends can become difficult. And this is why elderly parents can often feel lonely, isolated, or depressed, and so can caregivers. This is another area where education and advocacy are vital to helping elderly parents remain healthy and independent. This is another area that doesn't receive a lot of attention. I want to share some statistics to support the idea of being an advocate for your parents for physical, social, and cognitive activities. If you take a look at the quote on this slide, according to research by J.S. House, social relationships, or the relative lack thereof, constitute a major risk factor for health, rivaling the effect of well-established health risk factors such as cigarette smoking, blood pressure, blood lipids, obesity, and physical activity. So the risks to a person of lacking socialization are as great as chronic disease risks. Other research studies, here's some information. A Brigham Young study confirmed that people with strong social relationships are 50% less likely to die prematurely. You live longer. Support offered by friends helps to reduce the effects of stress. Some of us know this. People who feel that they have friends and family are generally more satisfied with their health than people who feel isolated. Feeling isolated and alone is an effect that translates into a lot of health issues, especially with older adults who live alone. Let's talk about the mental benefits of leisure activities. Social support, not having it, links to depression, more health conditions, anxiety, and memory loss. Elderly parents who become isolated struggle more with staying mentally sharp. They can have feelings of anxiety and depression because they don't have contact with the outside world. Relationships and social interactions do protect against illnesses. They boost the immune system. Continuing outside activities is even more important with elderly parents who give up their car, those who stop driving. Outside activities are equally crucial for elderly parents with Alzheimer's or dementia. The lower the level of interaction with the outside world, the higher the likelihood of what? Depression, feeling isolated, more memory loss. People who participate in a higher level of leisure and social activities have a 38% lower risk of developing dementia. That in itself is a great reason to exercise and be social. You can be an advocate for an elderly parent by encouraging them to create and maintain social relationships. Encourage them to attend interest groups for hobbies, go to church. If an elderly parent has a computer, if they don't know how, teach them how to email. Make sure they understand all the concepts of spam and that they're not giving out any financial information. That's a risky area. If your parents don't drive, ask their friends if they will visit to take mom or dad out to lunch. Ask your family members to commit to a social activity or an outing once a month with mom or dad. Create a social calendar. Doing this work in the long run supports your goal to help elderly parents remain active and independent so that you are not spending more time in a caregiving role. This eventually will happen, but anything you can do to delay it is a good thing. Let's talk about the mix of inside and outside activities. And I purposely put these women screaming on here because some people who are not social find it very hard to go out to groups and talk to people that they don't know and make friends. And so for elderly parents, it's even harder. A balance of activities in the home and outside the home is beneficial to staying sharp and avoiding illness. The challenge is, what's the life of your elderly parents like and what is their activity level? Hopefully it hasn't gone down to a point that it's going to be very difficult to reverse this. Is your elderly parent social, or do mom and dad prefer to be alone? Are they loners? Senior centers and day programs present opportunities for aging adults, for elderly adults to remain active, and they provide the venue to meet other older adults and to establish friendships. So you might wonder why your elderly parents say, I don't want to be with that group of old people. Well, it could be fear. Putting ourselves in uncertain situations can result in fear of having to talk to people and possibly not have them like us. We fear rejection. It's no different for our elderly parents. Do you attend networking events? Do you attend work meetings? Do you go alone? Is it easy for you to walk up to a perfect stranger and just start a conversation, start chatting it up? This may be how your elderly parent feels when you're suggesting going to a senior center or a day program that is a foreign idea, and this is why they may say no. If we're uncomfortable with the idea of going to meet some strangers, how do you think your parents feel? We can't expect them to participate in activities we wouldn't do ourselves. Take your elderly parent to a networking group. Help them make new friends. You can do it. It's up to you. And you might make some new acquaintances yourself. You might become friends with the children of the parents that your parents become acquainted with. Let's talk about physical interactions and activity. We always talk about this, but low amounts of physical activity, we know that that results in chronic diseases. We know that it affects the ability of parents to perform activities of daily living. We know this is why parents suffer injuries. We know it is why they move out of their homes to care communities. So how do we fix all this? In another module, we talked about the benefits of exercise, like lifting small weights, using resistance bands, walking, keeping the mind sharp, aerobic exercise. For elderly parents who want to stay able-bodied and able-minded, exercise is mandatory. It's not optional. In this module, I've included a couple of documents that you can download and print. These will give you an idea of some exercises that might be suitable for your elderly parents. Always, always, always consult your parent's doctor before starting any type of exercise program, especially if your elderly parent has been sitting around, not active, has health issues, if they've never exercised. If they haven't, you may have to be the one to start exercising with them to help them get into a daily routine. Again, you can create that tracking sheet with a list of exercises, pictures, things that your elderly parents are supposed to do, the number of repetitions. You can purchase weights and exercise bands for them, talk them into getting an exercise bike or a treadmill in their home. Anything you can do to support regular activity, benefits your elderly parent and yourself as the caregiver. Let's talk about some leisure activities that are the result of research. Some of my elderly clients told me that they didn't have any hobbies after they retired. Can you even imagine that? Not having anything you like to do, not knowing what to do with your time. These people worked all of their lives and they never had time to do anything else but raising children, working, and maintaining a household. For this reason, if your elderly parents don't have hobbies, encourage them. Find out the interests of their friends. See if you can talk your parents into participating in activities with their friends. That may be a safe environment, a safe step. I want to list leisure activities that were from a research study by a gentleman named Skarmaeus. And it confirms that all of these activities have a positive effect on daily health and well-being. So get a pen, write these down. So hobbies like knitting and music, walking for pleasure and exercise, visiting friends or relatives, that's an obvious one, and the opposite being visited in your home. Any type of physical conditioning, which is the weights, the exercise bands, exercises to help us be more strong and to gain muscle strength and balance. Going out to movies, restaurants, or sporting events is positive. Reading, magazines, books, newspapers, taking an online course, watching television or listening to the radio. Unpaid community volunteer work. I think I talked about the RSVP program in another module. It's the Retired Senior Volunteer Program. That's a great way for elderly parents to meet people and to volunteer and to feel like they're doing good for someone else. Playing cards, games, bingo, good idea. Going to a health club or a senior center. Going to classes like at a rec center or a community center or a community college. Going to church, synagogue, or the temple. Among these, which do you think are the highest ranking to avoid developing memory loss? Reading, visiting friends or relatives, going to movies or restaurants, and walking. As a caregiver, this can seem like a very long list, and it just continues to build, doesn't it? A lot of caregivers are unable to do it all, and that's a reality. Because as a caregiver, you will eventually realize that caring for elderly parents, managing their daily care, being an advocate, it all stacks up. It feels impossible. This is why it is so important to engage other family members, your brothers and sisters, early in the caregiving process to gain their participation. Eventually, you may use volunteers. You may use a paid caregiver to provide more help. You may move your parents into a care community. However, by creating daily and weekly routines for elderly parents on paper that they can use and track, you support their independence. You also support time-saving measures for yourself in caring for elderly routines. And your elderly parents can remain independent physically and mentally while they continue to complete these routines. All in all, this idea of daily monitoring helps everybody involved avoid unexpected situations and to manage expectations. Give your parents the project of investigating opportunities to be more active. If they can't or won't, contact local senior community centers that usually have a wide range of activities. Look for classes offered at local community college. Look for internet online classes. Contact the RSVP, the Retired Senior Volunteer Program. Contact other volunteer organizations. There are so many opportunities out there to remain active and engaged in life, no matter our age, no matter if we can get out or if we are using the computer. Help your parents help themselves. So let's do a summary. You want to gain participation and commitment from elderly parents, create positive routines to help you manage that never-ending to-do list. And if anybody ever tells you that retirement is retirement, it is and it isn't. I think the ability to maintain an active social life and maintain physically active pursuits is so important to remaining healthy. And this, in a sense, becomes our job after becoming retired. It's not that we are going to sit around all day and watch TV and do nothing. There are so many things that we can do to help ourselves and our elderly parents remain active and healthy when we're older. I'm Pamela D Wilson. Thank you for joining me for this module, for these webinars. I so appreciate your time. I will see you again in another webinar. Have a great day.